Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie McGrath, editor of Forbes Women. 1 week after President Trump announced sweeping global tariffs, he announced a 90-day pause on most countries except China. It's throwing a lot of people in retail into a moment of deep uncertainty. Joining us now is someone with a lot of merchandising experience in the retail space. She is Vivian Hoffman. She is now a founder of her own boutique retail company, but she used to work at Century 21. Vivian, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, when we first started emailing, the tariff implementation plan looked one way, and over the course of one day, it has kind of changed. What's your perspective on where we stand right now, just mere hours after President Trump announced a 90-day pause in most of these tariffs?
It has not changed that much as far as my business is concerned because the largest percent of my merchandise comes from vendors that import from China. So nothing changed for China. The tariffs even got worse for China. So um, I I guess that it helps the small percent of my vendors that make things in other countries, in Vietnam, Mexico, and Canada, which would be the other countries, and Peru. It's another country my vendors manufacture in.
But what percent of your business is tied to Chinese manufacturing versus those other countries that you just mentioned?
I would say of my imports, probably 95%, a great percent.
So this 90-day pause doesn't really help you. Can we zoom out a little bit and just can you help our audience understand what your company does and the products that you're putting forth in the world?
Absolutely. So Whim, I started the business because I saw a need for good quality, comfortable, fashionable clothing, jewelry, shoes, whatever for women at really reasonable prices. And that is what I founded Whim for. And we've been in business we opened our first store 8 years ago. We now have 5 brick and mortars, and we have a website and an Instagram store. And we have tried to stay true to our mission, which is to deliver great clothes at great prices. So the tariffs make that mission very challenging for me.
And probably even more so after today, we saw in his post on Truth Social, President Trump saying that he was raising the tariff charge to China by the US to 125%. Have you crunched the numbers on what this means for your revenue and for your operating abilities?
To be honest, I haven't because it's been evolving so much and changing every day that I'm really not sure what the true numbers are going to be and how it's going to affect my business. What I am sure of is that it is going to affect my business. But it's been hard to crunch the numbers because I don't know exactly when my vendors are going to start increasing my prices. And I also don't know in the interim if things are going to change again, if things are going to backstep or what's going to happen. So it sort of seems like a wasted exercise to start crunching the numbers at this point.
Interesting. So the ground is shifting beneath your feet. Are you talking to vendors or other entrepreneurs in your space? Like, what's the sentiment right now?
Yeah. I think the sentiment is that everybody is confused and doesn't know what to expect, and a lot of fear. Everybody does think that it's going to affect business and affect prices, but I don't think they know exactly how. I have started getting price increases the last week. I placed a reorder on shoes, and usually once you buy something and you pay one price, when you reorder it, it's the same price. And the shoes this time were increased 20%. And I was told it was because of the tariffs. Now, to me, the shoes are landed already, and that's not really fair. But I think that they're sort of trying to front load and, get ahead of what their increases are going to be. And my only choice was to either, pay the higher price or not buy the merchandise. And since it was a reorder, which meant I sold it, well, I did take it in. And then
And so then you're taking a loss on that, right? Because that means you had customer demand for those shoes, and then you had to get them at 20% more than what you were originally going to get them.
exactly, I'm taking a loss on it. But, I want to keep the same price from my customers. In my years in business, I've never taken the same item and had an increase in that item to my customers in the same season. Perhaps if I carry the same item a year later, you know, in that case, and I'm charged more, I might, but never in season like this.
Never in season like this. There's two follow-up questions I want to ask to that, but the first is about passing costs on to customers. I've been reading accounts from small business owners, talking to entrepreneurs. There are some who have the perspective, we're going to do what we can to not pass the cost on to consumers. Others say, I have no choice but to pass this cost on. Where do you land on that spectrum?
For the time being, I'm going to try to absorb as much as the costs as I can. I feel like it's a very competitive landscape out there, and our success, or part of our success, has been that our prices are so fair. And I really want to hold to those prices as much as I can. I mean, if it gets to the point that I can't, then I'm not going to be able to. But at the moment, I am. I don't feel like anything is concrete yet as far as the tariffs and, what's happening. And some of my vendors who do produce in China have been looking other places to produce, but I don't know how fast I'm going to see that merchandise.
Well, this leads me to my second follow-up question, which you referenced your experience in business, and you were a merchandiser for Century 21. In your years in that role, was there ever a tariff scenario quite like the one that we are looking at right now?
Not that I can remember. No, never.
Is there any comparable experience from that time in business that you're drawing on in order to guide Whim, your current company, now?
Yes. Well, from my experience at Century 21, I was there during 9/11, during that period. And it was pretty tough to maneuver then. We our one of our stores was totally gone during 9/11 closed, in ground zero. So it was a lot of maneuvering, getting out of merchandise, trying to cancel stuff that was coming, trying to negotiate better prices and stuff that we were buying for the future. So it was very challenging. And I think that did, help prepare me for this. There was a second situation, not at the Century 21, but I had opened my third Whim boutique 2 weeks before we got closed down for COVID. So here I was, in middle of grand opening, new staff. I had 3 stores, employees, a small office warehouse staff, and I had no clue really how to maneuver. And, I learned like everyone else and I got through it. But I feel like having those two experiences makes this a little less frightening for me and a little, sort of comparable kind of thing. Or maybe not comparable to 9/11, but comparable that you have to be nimble and you have to sort of wait and see. And
Well, one of the things I was curious to ask you is I don't want to make light of this situation. Just that 20% increase in what you paid for that reorder of shoes, that's a lot of money right there, to say nothing of the overall cost to your business that could shake out at the end of this. But in a moment like this, do you see opportunity for yourself to either evolve the business model or do things a little bit differently? Or, as you said, be nimble, and in that, could different business lines open up? I don't know. I'm curious about how you're looking at this moment from an entrepreneurial lens.
I think there could be some opportunity. I think it is wait and see and be nimble. You know, there may be vendors that are afraid and want to get rid of a lot of merchandise, so that can be an opportunity. At the same time, we don't really know what the future is going to be. Sitting here today, I really can't tell you what I think. I mean, I don't wish anybody bad business, but I think there's a lot of bad business out there. So from that standpoint, there could be opportunities, there could be empty stores, there could be great deals on stores, it could be a lot of opportunity, but it's not something I'm thinking about right now. I'm really thinking about how we're going to get through this and what business is going to be like.
As you think about different ways to navigate through this, I think, as Forbes Women editor, a lot about some of the statistics that are somewhat stacked against female founders. Usually, female founders need to operate with less capital, less funding, be a little more capital efficient. There is the application for credit. Do you feel like this moment is perhaps a little trickier for you as you navigate not just a hard economic moment, but some of the systemic biases that can make it harder to operate as a female founder?
So, to be perfectly honest, I have not found that, but I would say the women's clothing segment in particular, there are a lot of women founders. So maybe it's a little bit more unique to the retail as a whole. I feel it's very women driven. So I'm not feeling those biases. I would like to say I'm feeling the opposite, but I'm not really feeling either way. I don't think it's that pertinent right this minute. For me, anyway.
No, it's a fair response. I think one of the things that we've been trying to figure out in talking to sources, we see the way that women writ large are underemployed, make a little bit less than men still, according to Equal Pay Day. So in a moment like this, are women disproportionately impacted? I think is a question that I am openly exploring. But if you don't feel it, that's, I think, one fewer hurdle that you are facing at this moment when there are certainly plenty of hurdles that you are looking at.
Right. So I think personally, as far as like funding and cash flow, I'm not feeling it that way, but do I feel it in general and friends in other positions or industries? Yes, I do. I absolutely do.
Is this moment an existential threat to your business, or do you see a way through no matter what?
I would only want to imagine I see a way through. So I hope no different, but who knows? I hope that there is a way through. I feel I'm blessed that I have very loyal customers and my stores are in affluent communities. Um, I I'm not that concerned. I think it's a difficult time for everybody, but as far as the products I sell, I feel like if you have unique products and products that are good value and products that people want, you're going to sell them. I
Now,
mean, the prices are going to go up, my margins are going to go down, and a lot of scenarios like that, my foot traffic might go down, but I think I'm still going to sell product. Women customers like buying things that make them feel good. And that is our business, trying to make women feel good.
now, Vivian, you had said that you had not crunched the numbers yet because the situation is evolving in some cases by the minute. The ground is shifting beneath all of our feet. But what are the questions that you will be asking in the coming days and weeks in order to assess and future-proof your business?
Well, I am going to try to get as many prices as I can from vendors and ask vendors if they think there's going to be increases. I had my first situation yesterday. I went to a trade show a month ago in Las Vegas and I took notes. Often I write orders at shows. In this case, I took notes. It was a big jean vendor. And I now want to review my notes and write my fall order. So I asked for line sheets. And I was told they couldn't send the line sheets because they now don't have concrete prices. But they did have prices at the show when I was there in February. And because it's somebody I have a relationship with and I knew they would ship me even if my order was a little late, it wasn't a priority at the time. So I was like shocked. You don't have line sheets, you don't have prices. And they said they're waiting to see what happens with the tariffs. And that was a wake-up call.
I've talked to labor economists about how the labor market is a little bit frozen right now because employers are trying to figure out what to do and how to operate in a moment of uncertainty. That anecdote that you just shared indicates to me that there's a similar, perhaps frozen element to merchandising and supply chains. Would you agree?
I do agree. I do agree. You know, this is a little off that line, but one of the things I did when you asked about number crunching, I wasn't quite crunching the numbers because I didn't know what numbers to crunch, but what I am doing is trying to stay more liquid than I usually do. Um, Going to the trade shows, I did not write as much as I usually write. And I had a thought. I thought that was the thing to do. Stay liquid, be nimble. But then last week I was like, oh my God, am I making a mistake? Maybe I should front load merchandise that I don't think is too fashionable or too seasonal that will be something I'm buying going forward and front loaded, because maybe if I buy it now, I'll have sharper prices and the prices will go up later. So it's sort of two extremes, what I'm thinking. And I've been trying to read everything every other retailer is saying to see how other people are handling it. Um, and honestly, I haven't made a decision. I'm trying to figure it out.
I think it's the way a lot of consumers feel. I've been in conversations with friends who need new iPhones and they can't decide, do I get this now or do I wait and see? Do I take the gamble and potentially pay more money later? N- I don't know that anyone has a clear answer. What's your guidance to other entrepreneurs or maybe even consumers? Because uncertainty, I think, is one of the emotions that's hardest to sit with.
Yeah, I think uncertainty is the worst. It really is what everyone's feeling. As far as other entrepreneurs and businesses, m my feeling always is try to stay as nimble as you can. I mean, the any kind of deal or order or whatever you do, if you can sort of leave a few things open-ended, that if you have to pivot, you have that opportunity. I mean, I don't know if everybody does that or can do that. I've been in this business a very long time. I have over 50 years with some of my vendors, and I think they know my word is my word. So if I need to pivot a little, I can do it. So I think if you can leave yourself a little room, that's the way to go. But again, being nimble on everything. I'm not deciding on any, let's say I'm going to do some kind of promotion for Mother's Day or whatever it is. I probably would have decided by now everything I'm doing, and I'm waiting. I'm waiting on everything and I'm being nimble. I'm just trying to, it's sort of a day by day. In the past, it wasn't like that. We had a long calendar.
Right.
And I'm not feeling that right now. And I'm making very late decisions, but I think by doing that, they're safer. Um, so that's what I'm doing. And that would be my advice. As far as consumer advice, it's hard for me to my consumer advice is come shop at Whim. We got great prices and great merchandise, or come to my website, Whim Love. And we have a great return policy, which is one of the reasons we have a very successful business. You know, we're very lenient and we care about customer service. So, but other advice to customers, I'm just like them. I don't know. I don't think any of us know.
I think that's true. Uncertainty is the only word that we're all saying these days.
Exactly.
The only thing that's known, ironically. Well, Vivian Hoffman, founder of women's boutique chain Whim, thank you so much for sitting down with Forbes on a busy news day as the ground is shifting beneath our feet. We really appreciate your time and your insight.
And thank you so much for having me.